Hi,
Hey, how's it going?
welcome. We are not in a series. We finished the post quarantine church last week, and so this week we have a guest speaker, Laura Sook.
Yeah, some of you might know her from Northeast of the Well. What an amazing woman, and she always brings the word. So we are diving into a very cultural, controversial chapter in the book of John.
John chapter 4, the woman at the well. You've probably heard it before. She kind of talked about that and processed through some things. And so we're just going to take a little nuggets from that and kind of drift off and analyze this from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so what we're going to dive into is just the cultural relevance that was happening and taking place. So this woman was obviously an outsider, and I say obviously because of the time of day. So it would have been a gathering place. The watering well was
Sure.
a gathering place, but not at that time of day. And so the women who
So tell me this straight.
yes,
Water in the morning, chilling.
Yes.
Water in the evening, also chilling. Getting water in the middle of the day, not chilling.
absolutely right. And the reason we say obvious is because that John explicitly says it was the middle of the day.
Mhm.
And so this woman is in the heat of the day, and that's why the watering well would have been completely empty. And so she was an outcast from the community in which she was living, and so she had no other choice to go at the middle of the day when no one else was there. And so that's where we are caught in this scene, and then obviously we see Jesus interacting with it. And then another cultural faux pas, is that she is a Samaritan woman and Jesus is a Jewish male. And so both hate each other. Not Jesus, not this woman, but the cultures. So the Samaritans and the Jews. And so that just Jesus even acknowledging her presence was just something that was radically unheard of. And that is where we pick up the scene in this cultural moment.
And so Jesus engages with her and in a sense reads her mail with, he says, You've had multiple husbands and the guy you're with now is not one of your husbands. And so she then's like, oh, you're a prophet. And so they kind of enter into this dialogue, and instead of Jesus using that to pin her down and bring condemnation, he actually flips the script and he invites her into like an elevated perspective. The well that they were at was historically a holy place for both the Jews and the Samaritans, and so she starts going down this rabbit hole of looking at life in this holy place in a particular way. And how he flips the script is says the way in which you understand worship and connection with God is different. Now the true worshipers, and the operative words that he uses, will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. And then that's the invitation that then we see through the Holy Spirit, is that we all have this connection as sons and daughters of the King to worship in spirit. And this idea of worshiping in truth is no longer do we have to have a facade that only gets us halfway, but Jesus being the pinnacle of that for all eternity. And then the final step that's interesting, so he establishes this new way and this new connection under him.
This living water.
Truly, exactly, this living water. But from there's this idea that she goes out as an outcast in society and begins to tell all of her friends, and in a sense, she becomes an evangelist, which is fascinating because for her, it didn't matter her lack of status.
Yeah.
Jesus had come to radically transform her, and that was a game changer for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And just beautifully connected to what we've been talking about as a church and as a community in this being poured into so that we may pour out. And so you see this so evidently in the Samaritan woman. Jesus just comes alongside and lifts up her identity so that she can go out and share in spirit and in truth about this new belovedness, this new identity from an outcast to a part of the family. And I think that is just the beauty in getting to know Jesus and getting to know he meets you no matter where you're at. And I think that is what I take from this story.
Mm-hmm. Another little tidbit for you. We don't have time to totally dive into it, but if you on your personal devotions want to look into it, this idea of living water and Jesus coming is unique. And if you want to dive deeper, look at when Jesus dies on the cross at the end of John and his line, I thirst. And the question I always had is, why the God of the universe? You're going to say 7 things on the cross. Why are you going to make a comment to the fact that you're thirsty? And I think commentators try to go like, oh, he was a man and okay. But take a look at his his statement of I thirst in parallel with John chapter 4, because I think there's so much to unpack there as it relates to the living water. But that's a conversation for another day. Today we're looking at in spirit and in truth, breaking cultural norms and what God is inviting us into in the process of discovering him through our worship and through our offerings of sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a tangible takeaway obviously would be, how can you see those around you, no matter the radical difference you may have, the social economic status that might be vast canyons apart, how can you look them in the eye and say, you are beloved and I see you? And I think that is something that I want to work on this week as I learn from John 4.
Have a great week.